There is one company that has quietly become one of the biggest animation studios in the world. A company that's won Oscars, changed how anime gets funded, and created the most viral animated movie of the decade. It might be hard to believe, but Netflix has legitimately become one of the biggest influences in animation, and it's all calculated. But most of you haven't even noticed. So how did this happen? And why could this completely reshape the animation industry as we know it? Well, Netflix built their animation empire on 3 pillars: dominating anime, creating Oscar-worthy movies, and producing groundbreaking shows. Interestingly enough, their path to animation dominance actually started with anime. While they dipped their toes with shows like BoJack Horseman earlier, it was their anime strategy that showed they were serious about becoming an animation powerhouse. See, for decades, Western anime fans relied on fan subs, sketchy sites to watch anime. Crunchyroll emerged as the legal option, but gaps remained, and Netflix saw that as a massive opportunity. Starting around 2017, Netflix began aggressively licensing anime, spending billions of dollars to secure exclusive rights to titles like The Seven Deadly Sins, Kagegurui, Devilman Crybaby, and Violet Evergarden. But here's the most pivotal decision. Instead of joining Japan's traditional production committees, where multiple companies invest and share the profits of animes, Netflix bypassed them entirely. They contracted directly with studios, funding productions in exchange for global streaming rights or full copyright ownership from day one. And the results were insane. By 2020, Netflix had built one of the West's most significant anime libraries, landing exclusives like Beastars and The Way of the House Husband. They also signed deals with legendary studios like Studio Colorido and Science Saru. Then came Netflix originals. Devilman Crybaby became an instant cult classic with its psychedelic art and unflinching storytelling. Cyberpunk Edgerunners was also massively popular. I was a huge fan. Netflix was proving that they'd fund creative risks traditional studios just wouldn't touch. They were investing early, securing global rights, and letting creators create. But their Western animation push is where things really took off for them. See, Netflix knows exactly what you watch, when you pause, and how many times you've rewatched your favorite scenes. But here's the thing, while Netflix uses your data to recommend awesome movies, data brokers are using your personal information in ways that are way more terrifying. Honestly, it's not something I've ever taken seriously until I actually started researching this stuff. And with today's AI easily capable of faking your voice on the phone or deep faking your face in a video call, having things like your phone number, email, or address out there is pretty damn scary. That's where Incogni, the sponsor of today's video, can help. Incogni works by tracking down and removing your personally identifiable information from the internet by going after the data brokers and people search sites that are selling your info without you even knowing. Getting set up is super easy too. You literally just create an account, put in your info, and they just handle everything from there. Within a couple of days, the spam calls I was getting almost entirely stopped. It just calms my anxiety, knowing how much harder it is for scammers to do anything bad if they can't find me in the first place. Plus, with their unlimited plan, if you find your data on any websites that they don't cover, you can just copy paste the link into Incogni and their team takes care of the rest. They've removed my info from over 45 data brokers already in just a few days. So take your personal data back with Incogni by using code MUNWERA for an insane 60% off at incogni.com/Moonwera or by using the link down in the description. Now back to how Netflix's Western animation strategy completely took off. See, while Disney, Sony, and Pixar were battling it out in theaters, Netflix was building something different, a direct-to-streaming animation pipeline that could compete with, and in some cases surpass, theatrical releases in terms of societal impact and popularity. And goddamn did they do it. Starting with Klaus in 2019, which was Netflix's first serious attempt at creating a theatrical quality animated movie. Directed by Sergio Pablos, Klaus used a hybrid 2D, 3D animation technique that was absolutely breathtaking. It told a heartfelt origin story of Santa Claus that genuinely makes people cry, me included. And it worked. Klaus was nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, Netflix's first animation in that category. More importantly, it proved that audiences would show up for original animated films on streaming. No theatrical release needed, no massive marketing campaign, just a good movie dropped on the platform and word of mouth did the rest. Then came The Mitchells vs. the Machines. Originally produced and made by Sony Pictures Animation for theatrical release, Sony ended up selling it to Netflix during the pandemic, which turned out to be a genius decision for Netflix. The movie became one of Netflix's most watched animated movies and earned amazing reviews. It's now considered by many, me included, to be one of the best animated movies of the 2020s. What's fascinating about The Mitchells vs. the Machines is how perfectly it aligned with Netflix's strategy. It was weird, stylized, and had a very specific sense of humor that might have struggled in cinemas. But on Netflix, it easily found its audience. Netflix followed that up with The Sea Beast, which earned Netflix another Best Animated Feature nomination at the Oscars and became one of their most watched movies of 2022. But it ended up losing out to maybe the most important movie Netflix has ever been a part of. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio in 2022. A movie that's considered an absolute masterpiece, becoming the first animated movie from a streaming platform to win an Oscar, beating out both Disney and Pixar that year. Read that again. Netflix beat Disney at the Oscars for Best Animated Feature. That's not supposed to happen. Pixar's won the category 11 times. Walt Disney Studios has won it 4 times. And here comes Netflix with their first decade of serious animation investment, and they take home the trophy. Pretty wild, if you ask me. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio proved something crucial. Netflix was willing to take risks on bold, auteur-driven animation that traditional studios might have deemed too dark or not commercial enough, and audiences loved it. That being said, all their investment in animation over the past decade has culminated in 2025 in one of the most popular, viral, and straight-up frenzy-inducing movies I have ever witnessed in my life, which they snagged from under Sony's noses for around $125 million. A movie Sony thought was too risky to release in cinemas. None other than K-pop Demon Hunters. A movie that's been watched 325 million times now, becoming the #1 movie of all time on Netflix by a mile. The sing-along theatrical release became the first Netflix film to top the US box office. The soundtrack went platinum and became the first movie soundtrack ever to have 4 songs simultaneously in the Billboard Hot 100 Top 10. And here's what's crazy. This was an animated musical about Korean demon hunters who moonlight as K-pop stars. The exact kind of too niche, too risky project that traditional studios usually pass on. This happened with Nimona 2, by the way, which was shelved by Disney before Netflix swooped in and released it themselves. With K-pop Demon Hunters, Netflix saw what Sony couldn't: a gap in the market for bold, culturally diverse animation with incredible K-pop music. They funded it and it became the most viral animated movie of the entire decade. But that's the thing, they didn't stop at movies. Netflix has also been home to some of the best animated shows of all time. Because while movies get the headlines and Oscar nominations, it's the series that actually keeps subscribers around month after month. BoJack Horseman was Netflix's first major original animated series for adults, and it fundamentally changed what people thought adult animation could be. It wasn't just crude jokes and shock value like Family Guy or South Park or The Simpsons. It was a genuine, deeply emotional exploration of depression, addiction, and the entertainment industry. The show became loved by so many, including a lot of my friends, and proved there was a massive audience for sophisticated adult animation. Then there's Love, Death, and Robots, arguably Netflix's most ambitious animated project. Each episode is a completely different story with different animation styles, different directors, and different studios. It's a showcase of what animation can do when there are no creative restrictions. And it's been wildly successful. The series has won multiple Emmys and introduced Western audiences to animation studios from around the world. But the series spent 11 years in development hell because no studio was willing to fund the project. Once again, Netflix financed the project that seemed too risky or out there for other studios. But perhaps the most important animated series on Netflix is Arcane. While Riot Games funded and produced the show entirely themselves, Netflix paid $54 million to secure exclusive global streaming rights in most countries, for what became one of the best animated shows of all time. This League of Legends adaptation shouldn't have worked. Video game adaptations are notoriously terrible. Except Arcane became one of the most critically acclaimed animated shows ever made. The animation by Fortiche is some of the most unique I've ever seen, a blend of 2D and 3D that creates this painterly, almost tangible world. The story is absolutely wild, with it being impossible to predict what's gonna happen next. Arcane has been watched for hundreds of millions of hours. It's won 16 Annie Awards and 8 primetime Emmys across its 2 seasons. And probably most importantly of all, it proved that Netflix could create animated shows that transcend their source material and become cultural events in and of themselves. But let's circle back to anime, because in 2020, Netflix pulled off something no streaming platform had ever achieved: securing global rights to the entire Studio Ghibli catalog in every country except the US, Canada, and Japan. This was insane for so many reasons. Studio Ghibli had refused to make their films available digitally for decades. Miyazaki apparently didn't even know what streaming services were when producer Toshio Suzuki convinced him to finally allow it. Netflix became the first streaming home of the greatest animation studio of all time, immediately adding prestige and legitimacy to their anime library that no amount of original content could buy. Then in 2021, they announced they were significantly expanding their anime investment, with plans to release 40 anime titles that year alone, a mix of both original productions and exclusive licenses. This included shows like Yasuke, about Africa's first black samurai, Record of Ragnarok, an adaptation of the hugely popular manga about an epic battle between gods and humanity's greatest warriors, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Stone Ocean, securing one of anime's most beloved franchises. This was a declaration of war against Crunchyroll, which had just been acquired by Sony and Funimation. Netflix wasn't content to just be another platform with some anime sprinkled here and there. They wanted to be the anime platform. Shows like Dandadan proved Netflix's anime strategy was paying off. The supernatural action series became one of 2024's breakout hits, trending globally and attracting both hardcore anime fans and newcomers. The results speak for themselves. By 2025, over 50% of Netflix subscribers watch anime, with viewership tripling over 5 years. What started as an experiment has become central to Netflix's global strategy. But here's what's most interesting. Netflix is also changing how anime gets made. Traditionally, anime studios operate on razor-thin margins, paying animators horrendously bad and working them to absolute death. Netflix's funding model, where they provide significant upfront investment, gives studios more financial security and theoretically better working conditions. Now, this hasn't solved anime's labor problems at all, but it has created opportunities for studios to take creative risks they couldn't afford before. Science Saru, for example, has thrived under Netflix's model, creating visually experimental shows like Devilman Crybaby and Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. So why is Netflix's animation strategy working so damn well? It boils down to a few key factors. When they fund a project, they secure global rights. There's no territorial licensing, no theatrical windows, just instant access in like 190 plus countries. They're also willing to bankroll unconventional projects that major studios deem too risky, and creators get significantly more freedom than traditional studios. Since there's no advertiser-driven censorship, no toy companies demanding marketable character designs, and far fewer stakeholders giving conflicting notes. Most importantly, the economics are different. A Netflix animated movie doesn't need box office success. It just needs to keep subscribers from canceling. That fundamentally changes what kind of stories get greenlit and how their success is measured. But there are some caveats. Netflix's animation empire is far from perfect. There are some genuine concerns. First off, cancellations. Netflix has a reputation for canceling shows after 1 or 2 seasons, even successful ones. Inside Job, Tuca and Birdie, Bone, that's just sad. And I was personally really looking forward to the Bone series. Second off, creator compensation. Netflix's buyout model means creators don't typically receive residuals or back-end profits. They get paid up front, but if their show becomes a massive hit, they don't see additional money. So Sony kind of got screwed with K-pop Demon Hunters. This has led to tension with animation guilds and individual creators. Thirdly, how long can they keep this up? Netflix is spending billions on content while losing subscribers in some markets. Can this level of investment really continue indefinitely? Probably not. They're gonna have to eventually cut back. But they don't seem to want to do that anytime soon, because they're seemingly doubling down on animation. They've announced animated adaptations of Roald Dahl books, Magic the Gathering, Minecraft, and a ton of other properties. They clearly want to build franchises that can sustain multiple seasons and spin-offs. I mean, I get it, it makes sense. They also have a new animated movie coming out in November called In Your Dreams that looks genuinely fun, hilarious, and wacky, plus a ton of other animated projects that got released and are releasing this second half of 2025. So I gotta say, it's pretty obvious. Netflix seems to be shaping the animation landscape in a huge way. They've proven that streaming can compete with theatrical releases. They've shown that adult animation can be sophisticated and awesome. They've created opportunities for diverse voices and experimental styles that traditional studios would never fund. But they've also created a system where shows get canceled arbitrarily, where creators don't share in their success, and where everything is evaluated through algorithmic data rather than artistic merit. Netflix's animation empire is both the best and maybe worst thing to happen to animation in decades. Nevertheless, animation is no longer Disney or Pixar's kingdom. Netflix and Sony too, to be honest, have both built their own empires, and they're not backing down anytime soon.